Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey everybody, got some a video here from the iHip Girls I think you ought to watch, and then I'll discuss that afterwards. So let's go to the video.
He's an absolute maniacal lunatic. He's threatening to arrest the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Play the clip.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I was Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under.
He's putting a flagpole over there that's under budget. I mean, this is so embarrassing. And then he's just like, oh, I would do it. I would arrest him. But I like Gavin Newsom. I mean, he's just a lunatic. But he is not ambitious enough to be like the big, bad dictator that he wants to be. But the psychopaths around him are. Yeah. Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, and then it just ricochets from there, just cascading sociopath nut jobs all around him.
Yeah, for a president of the United States to call for a governor to be imprisoned is absolutely unprecedented. I mean, this is authoritarianism, full stop. I mean, Donald Trump has turned the U.S. military on its citizens.
Well, and this is what they do. I think we were talking to a guest, and Rachel Maddow talks about how they prime their base for things. So they're starting to talk about arresting governors. They're starting to talk about it. And Gavin Newsom is not popular on the far right. Anybody who is actually an attractive, smart, eloquent, intellectual male, they don't like it all. They like these dipshits that can't blend their makeup. But they're just priming the base for this kind of stuff. And they have in plans, I've read some articles that he has some really dark stuff in store for this country. And the Supreme Court is still sitting around playing patty cake with him. I mean, their orders are still, in my opinion, pleasing to him consistently. And the Do Nothing Congress, they're going to do nothing. And so we just, watch. But here's Trump saying that he saved Los Angeles. We made a great decision in sending the National Guard to deal with the violent, instigated riots in California. If we had not done so, Los Angeles would have been completely obliterated. The very incompetent governor, Gavin Newsom, the mayor, Karen Bass, should be saying, thank you, President Trump. You are so wonderful. We would be nothing without you, sir. Instead, they chose to lie to the people of California and America by saying that we weren't needed and that these are peaceful protests. Just one look at the pictures and videos of the violence and destruction tells you all you have to know. We will always do what is needed to keep our citizens safe so we can together make America great again. A few things to unpack here. Number one, this protest is in a tiny little block of Los Angeles. Everybody else in Los Angeles is living their lives as normal. He has manufactured a crisis like he does all the time, like about the tariffs, manufactured so that then he can come in and pretend like he is the rescuer. But this is more dangerous. And if you listen to historian Ruth Ben-Gate, she talks about how authoritarians create and manufacture chaos. It's a completely imaginary problem. And then they come in so they can move the goalposts. And he's dying to do whatever he can do to not have midterm elections. So we're going to see this really start to crank up.
And we have this weekend, his parade that he's dedicating to himself from his birthday. And from what I'm reading, there's all these protests against Trump going to come on. So this gives him a window into those protests because by all accounts, police, mayor, municipal officials, governor, peaceful. These protests are peaceful. And they came in and just launched a grenade against all these people. And I'm saying that figuratively. And they are trying to, and I promise you on Fox News, they're like rah, turn the military on the American people. Like they are.
Don't shower again until you've seen the disgusting truth about your water pipes. This dermatologist from New York
all for it.
Which is so short-sighted, like if Rupert Murdoch and Lachlan Murdoch think that at some point he's not going to want, if they keep giving him all this, he's not going to want to say, you know what, you've made too much money off of me. I want Fox News. I want the government to own and control it. The people should own Fox News. They've been lying to you and ripping you off. Nobody is safe under this. So they all play the short-sighted patty cake, duck, duck, goose with this nut. And they're all going to get screwed because nobody has conviction because as a country, we have created this massive, horrific greed. And we can deal with Trump. Eventually time will deal with him or he'll get dealt with in an election. One of those two things will happen. But we have to deal with the problems that facilitated Trump, that brought Trump about. And it is a very broken capitalist system where we value the wealthiest at the top. Where, think about it, out of the 77 million, I would say 99.99999% of them voted against their own economic interest with this guy. And he has them cheerleading for Musk and others to receive more tax breaks.
Look no further than the colossal breakup between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because Trump wants everybody to do exactly what he says all the time. You can never fill him up. This $100 million parade, it's not going to make him feel good. He's going to be worried about the protests. He's going to be a victim of the protests. Elon Musk rats him out about the Epstein stuff. And now we're not talking about that anymore because we've sent the National Guard into the American cities.
Think about the psychology of this guy. He's the sorest winner.
Oh, yes.
And he's also the sorest loser. It doesn't matter if he wins or if he loses. His number one drug of choice is whining and crying and complaining. Poor me, poor me. And, like when he wrote in that tweet that I read, everybody should be saying, thank you, sir. Sorry. And everybody on the planet could be saying that. But his mom and dad fucked him up so extraordinarily that we're dealing with a toxic little titty baby with inner child issues and trauma that cannot be fixed. We're talking about an 80-year-old man that's tripping up the stairs of Air Force One, can barely speak, surrounded by a bunch of psychos, and he wants everybody to praise him. And I agree with you. The parade will not cut it. Here's Newsom calling Trump a liar.
To, as always, hit you hard publicly. Just 10 minutes ago, he put out another Truth Social telling you and the mayor to apologize to the people of Los Angeles. You guys go at it pretty hard publicly, but I know you talk privately. Have you spoken in the last couple of days to the president about any of this?
Yeah, we talked for almost 20 minutes, and this issue never came up. I kept trying to talk about L.A. He wanted to talk about all these other issues. We had a very decent conversation.
When was this?
This was late Friday night. I think about 1:30 plus his time.
After the protests had started?
After the protests, and he never once brought up the National Guard. He's a stone-cold liar. He said he did. Stone-cold liar. Never did. It was a very civil conversation. I've always wanted to approach engagement with the President of the United States in a respectful and responsible way. But there's no working with the President. There's only working for him. And I will never.
Okay. You know what Trump is? He's like the verbal comment section of like Facebook. Yes. Like he'll say all of this shit in front of cameras and he'll lie social it. He'll do all this stuff. But when he gets on the phone with Gavin, he pusses out. He's puss boy city. He can't sit there and have a conversation with him because he knows Gavin will eat him for lunch. So we elected a low information voter who's like a chronic Facebook commenter. That's the president of the United States using news scum and all of that stuff. And I guess that hits hard for the 77 million that voted for him to call a governor Gavin Newsom. I guess they like that and it hits really hard. But for me, I think politics, as entertaining as all of this can be, politics are best boring. It's policy wonky stuff. And we've turned this into this tabloid reality TV show bullshit. And just one thing I want to say about the immigration issue. Barack Obama and Joe Biden both deported far more people than Donald Trump ever has. And they did it all legally. Everybody had due process. And I think Obama is 3-point-something million. And Joe Biden deported like something over 4 million. Well, Stephen Miller's panties are in a wad right now because his deportation numbers are down. So put up this next one. Miller incited the protest by ordering officials he'd no authority over to ditch the policy of only seeking persons with criminal records and instead demanded they raid Home Depots to get the max number of non-violent folks. The whole thing was a scam. ICE officials don't know who to arrest thanks to Stephen Miller. And here's what I have to say about this. The Home Depot guy is a well-known Republican MAGA funder. And so all of these people that want to play short-term with Trump, they're going to find out. And it's so gross that this is what it takes for them to find out. Now, none of these subcontractors are going to go to Home Depot anymore if they know that ICE is hanging out there.
Right. And here's the fundamental issue. I mean, there's so many. I shouldn't say just the one. But the fact that they don't care. He's worried about numbers. He's not worried about, we heard about criminals and insane people and all that. The reality is they are doing these deportation exercises with their masks on. They are raiding vacationers to the United States of America because they want numbers. They want to put it on the White House Twitter network how big and bad and bold they are because they're a bunch of bullies with no soul.
I saw this clip where ICE went into like a construction site and arrested 100 migrant workers. As somebody who, as an interior designer around construction all the time, the effects that this would have to remove that labor force from the United States of America is going to be horrific. And if you think that people who did the insurrection can climb up on a roof and do that type of manual labor for the exploitative rates that these immigrants do it's just so stupid. I mean, these people are so breathtakingly stupid, and it's just this short-sighted impulse. But Stephen Miller, he likes to produce this kind of porn online. And his version of porn is rounding up brown people and whisking them off to concentration camps. This is going to sound vulgar, but I think everybody will get it. I guarantee you those CCOT pictures of that El Salvadorian prison where they're all lined up. I bet that's the kind of stuff that Stephen Miller has in his spank bank.
I 100% agree because he is so cruel.
Yeah.
I mean, he likes it.
It's some sort of weird fetish thing with him that he likes that whole, the White House account made that ASMR video of them clanking the chains and putting people up. I think this is his kink. And here's the deal. I mean, if somebody has a kink, whatever, this person should not be in charge of anything. And he has always been right in the shadows. He's the one that planned that whole MSG rally,
right,
which had all of these Hitler overtones and undertones to it. And the weirdest thing about so many people in MAGA is this. Stephen Miller, Jewish. Yet Nazi-ish. Scott Bessent, gay, yet kind of anti-gay. Kristi Noem, a woman, yet very anti-woman. J.D. Vance, closeted gay, yet very anti-gay. And you can just go on and on down the list that we have Trump. The only people that remained after Trump 1.0 are these very broken people that are going into this government as a means to either they have so much self-loathing, they want to exact that onto the public. I liken it to Catholic priests. They probably had some sort of, sexual perversion. They thought, okay, if I'm a priest, I can go into the church and then everything's going to be better. These guys are going into government thinking they can fix all of their brokenness through humanity. And it's like we're dealing with incredibly broken people that literally need to be in an institution.
Absolutely. Stephen Miller is probably the most diabolical of the whole bunch. And that is an extremely, extremely high mark.
Okay. And then one final clip here, post. Terry Moran, an ABC reporter, tweeted the following. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He is a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred only a means to an end. And that end is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment. I think that is spot on. I think that's a great tweet. I think that's great analysis. What does ABC News do? Suspends him because Stephen Miller and Trump called ABC and whined and cried like the little titty babies that they are. Because you know why? It's 1,000% true.
Right. It's absolutely true. Look at what Trump does. Everything is about, sir, you're so great. Everybody loves me. Either he's a victim or he's the best thing that ever did. He never did anything so-so in his mind. He's always the best at everything. Stephen Miller has consistently been a racist. I mean, he is running around the last 4 years worried about white discrimination.
The larger issue here is that ABC News is going along with Trump and Miller. That's the bigger issue. Of course, Trump's a piece of shit. Of course, Miller's a piece of shit. When we see this appeasement and you see these corporations, they are playing such a short-sighted game. ABC News, this is ridiculous. It is embarrassing that they would do that. That was a spot-on analysis. It is his opinion. They should have defended him. They should have gone to bat for him. And instead, they suspend him. And what we're finding out right now in the United States of America is Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, we all know they're pieces of shit. Who is going to enable the pieces of shit? And we're finding out. We're finding out that Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, the neutered Zuckerberg, I still can't believe he went on a podcast and said that out loud. I feel so neutered in my workplace, but I'm an alpha male.
Right.
I mean, anyway, all right, listen, these corporations that are capitulating to fascism is just really, really dangerous precedent. And ABC News, shame on you.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we share that tweet and keep it alive because it must have really stung.
Because it's exactly right. Truth is so powerful for these people because they live in lies.
Okay, order our book, Life is a Lazy Susan of Shit Sandwiches. Support us by buying our book. The link is in the bio, and it'll also be pinned to the YouTube comment. So please order. It's a great little weekend read, and we'll see you all later.
So let me read this article here from Daily Dose. It says, City of Glendale, California ends its contract with ICE in wake of the protests. Anti-ICE protests intensify in Los Angeles after Trump deployed hundreds of National Guard troops. Tensions in Los Angeles escalated as thousands of protesters took to the streets in response to Trump's extraordinary deployment of the National Guard, blocking off a major freeway and setting self-driving cars on fire as law enforcement used tear gas, rubber bullets, and flashbangs to control the crowd. Some police patrolled the streets on horseback, while others with riot gear lined up behind guard troops deployed to protect federal facilities, including a detention center where some immigrants were taken in recent days. Police declared an unlawful assembly, and by early evening, many people had left. It was the third day of demonstrations against Trump's draconian immigration crackdown in the region, as the arrival of around 300 federal troops spurred anger and fear among some residents and prompted an angry response from Governor Newsom, who excoriated the president's troop deployment as the act of a dictator. Trump's troop deployment appeared to be the first time in decades that a state's National Guard was activated without a request from its governor, a significant escalation against those who have sought to hinder the authoritarian regime's mass deportation efforts. Okay. So look, the governor usually is the one to ask for help from the federal government in situations, you know, where there's unruly things happening and stuff. Okay. There was certainly no call for Trump to escalate this by sending in ICE with police escort, you know, which, you know, in the half-assed draconian way they started this thing in Los Angeles certainly would create a public outcry. Okay, so originally these people had come out in a peaceful way to protest what they were doing, and Trump takes that as, oh, it's violent, it's getting violent, people, you know, and then so we're going to get the military involved, okay, or the National Guard. And when people saw that and they started to get really pissed, he's like, okay, I'm sending in the Marines. Okay, so he keeps escalating this, building it up to a point where he wants to see, you know, martial law declared in LA or at large, probably. He wants to go in there and do this shit on Governor Newsom's watch. Now, at some point, the people in California are going to look to Nancy Pelosi and Governor Newsom and the mayor, and they're going to say, help us. Do something. Stop this shit from happening. There's a better way to deal with this. This is not the way. You're making LA look like a fucking dystopian movie here about the future. Okay, it looks like, you know, goddamn what's that? Demolition Man. You ever seen the movie Demolition Man? Sylvester Stallone. It looks just like that. Okay, it's crazy. What's happening here is unnecessary. It didn't need to happen. But Trump is, you know, I know the girls was talking about how, you know, what's his face there has got a fetish for violence and stuff. Well, Trump does too. Trump does too. He's sitting behind his. I mean, look, who started the fucking riot in D.C. on January 6th? Who started that? Okay, he can't do anything. Okay, without trying to create chaos in the forefront in order to get his way, because nothing he wants to do is popular. Cutting Medicaid was not popular. Okay, deporting immigrants is not popular. So he has to do this under the backdrop of chaos and violence, and that's the only way he tries to get his way. Okay, he doesn't know how to lead. He's not a leader. He's a mob boss. That's what he is. He's a fucking mob boss. And he's leading the country like if we had put in a mafia in the White House. That's the way he's dealing with shit. Okay? It doesn't matter that you're not supposed to turn your own military against the American people. Believe it or not, there are rules against that sort of thing. But he doesn't care. In his mind, the military are his gunmen. Okay? Send them out. And if ICE thought that they were doing the right thing and it was constitutional and law-abiding, why do they wear masks? Why are they going around wearing t-shirts and, you know, dressed like, you know, any citizen you'd see on the street, and then just sneaking up on people and snatching them? Okay? Why are they doing this if this is so above board? Because they know it's not. They know this, and they don't want to be identified. Okay? They probably live right in Los Angeles. Okay? So they don't want people to recognize them. Say, I know you, I know where you live. Because guess what would happen then? People would take the fight right to their home. They'd follow the guy to where he lives, and they'd firebomb the house. Okay? ICE can't be on duty 24/7. Sooner or later, they have to call, you know, punch a clock or whatever, go home. But if it ever got out that they found out where these people live, which is possible that they could, and they're not protected, you know, by somebody, a guard or something like that, you know, hey, it becomes a free-for-all. And at some point, you know, this is going to catch up to them. I really feel like the people in Los Angeles, okay, we saw how they have riots out there in the past when injustice was done. They set fire to the whole goddamn town. Okay, they're begging for the lightning to strike again. Trump is begging for this, okay? He wants this to happen. He wants LA to look like a goddamn inferno. That's what these people, that's what he's doing. That's what his administration, the people in his administration, that's what they want to see. They want to see that city burned to the ground. Republicans never had any love for Los Angeles, okay? I don't know if you're even aware of that, but LA has always been looked at as a bastion for liberal thought and stuff like that, okay? Because Hollywood is out there, all right? And so they know that, you know, Hollywood's got no love for republicanism either, okay? So they would like nothing more than to watch that city burn to the ground. And, you know, my issue is that if Trump is pushing for this, and if we don't, and if people don't get more vocal, get more active out there on the streets, protest harder, okay, especially go to the governor and start protesting in front of him, you know, his place. He needs to get out there more. He needs to start rattling his saber. He needs to start saying, we're closing off the borders to the rest of the country. We're not allowing anybody in here, okay? He needs to do something like that and say, you know, or just say, you know, California is not going to do any more business with the federal government. He's going to have to take just as drastic a step of things as Trump is doing. So you've got to play into Trump's hand, okay? That in itself would really shock the nation. That, you know, California now is considered its own country, okay? It's no longer aligned with the federal government, okay? This would really start the domino effect of different states also following suit, because if California does it, Maine might do it, Texas might do it, you know, all these places that really don't have much love for the federal government, they might all decide we're leaving, okay? And so that would, you know, that would cut the you know, take the cards out of his hand, so to speak, okay? Because then he wouldn't have them. And I like I said, this is really insane that we're going through this. It feels like we're in a nightmare movie, but this is not a movie, and truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. There's no movie that could actually bring this, to make this look like it's real, okay? But it's happening. And people have to understand that there is a root cause to all this, okay? And we can't take our eye off of that. What started this, I know the IHIP girls said it was capitalism that started it. Okay. And to some degree, yes. I also think what started this was evangelical Christians in this country who tied in with money, okay, which, you know, you got capitalism, right? Which tied in with that, paired up with capitalism, created the situation that developed into MAGA, okay? It didn't happen overnight, but it happened, and it took decades to come to this point. For a long time, these elements have been uniting, building up strength, building up support for the time when they were going to take the government. And they have, okay? Make no mistake about it, they have. They're calling the shots. And for a lot of, and you know, in most cases, it ain't really Trump calling the shots, okay? It's people around him that are, you know, whispering in his ear, throwing little hints. They know how to manipulate him, just like Putin does, just like Xi does, okay? They know how to manipulate Trump. And Trump, being the mental moron that he is, and the dementia he's suffering, Christ, he almost fell down the fucking stairs at Air Force One, but he's mentally not fit to be president, but he's the great puppet, and his administration's got him on the strings, and so they're using him. And these people that surround his ass, okay, they're the ones really that's pushing this, okay? Trump is just easily manipulated. So if the country revolts against the government in mass, okay, it's not enough that Trump is removed. You have to take out the whole clan that's in the White House right now. The whole administration has got to go. That also includes members of Congress and the Senate, because they're also into that too. Also includes members of the Supreme Court. Okay, everybody that's been touched by this administration to give Trump power has to be taken out of the loop. You know, whichever way you want to think about it. Okay, but they have to be removed. Otherwise, the cancer remains. That was how it all started to begin with, is that these elements were getting into key positions all along, just like the way they've been manipulating the election map, redistricting, a little bit here, a little bit there. They've been doing the same thing little by little by little while the Democrats slept behind the fucking wheel and never stopped it, okay? So this is how it got to this point. But now, the only way to undo all of that is for things to get heated, like they are now in Los Angeles. But it has to happen on a national scale. It can't be just LA. It has to be from the East Coast to the West Coast. It has to go all over this country. Everybody, every state has to stand up against it, okay? And they have to take that fight all the way to Washington, D.C., okay? That's how you get this done, because you can't really depend on Congress. Congress isn't really talking about anything to do about what's happening here. They're not trying to stop anything. Like I say, you don't hear about anything from Nancy Pelosi. She's been very quiet. This is, you know, California, it's her state. Why hasn't she been saying anything? They're having impeachment discussions on in Congress, and there's hardly anybody there to listen. So it's not being taken serious. How far does it have to go before people start to take it serious? How much more shit does Trump have to do before they start to take it serious? I'm not buying the excuse that people are too afraid to oppose Trump. Okay? I'm not buying that excuse. Because I think that once you get it into your head that somebody is more powerful than you are, then you convince yourself that you're useless, that you have no power. And that's wrong. Okay? That's wrong. Because in mass, we have more strength, more numbers than they do. Remember, just remember, this is a minority group that took over the country. MAGA. Only these people did it. You want to call, 60 million people that voted for Trump, okay, 60 or 70, whatever the number is. It's still a minority group, because out of over 330 million Americans, okay, only 70 million voted for him. That means only 70 million really agreed with Trump. Of course, a lot of that number's diminished now after the fact, because now they realize they fucked up. But still, the minority's gotten even smaller, and it's still a minority. So in great numbers, we can make a difference. We just have to, have a direction. We need a plan of action. We need to have, how to do this, okay? We need to have a direction, a leader, if you will, somebody, who isn't speaking or something. Somebody out there who knows how to organize the anger that's out there on the streets right now, to get it to where it means something, where people will be heard, okay? That was one of the things about the, the 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War, when the protests were happening, okay? And there were a lot. But I think a lot of times what was lacking during those protests was a plan, okay? It didn't feel like there was much organization to the protests. Sure, they were happening in different parts of the country, but it seemed like it was disorganized, okay, to a degree, and it didn't seem like all the facets of what was happening in the different parts of the country were actually together, actually communicating with one another to organize better, okay? And the same thing is happening, I think, here, because even though what's happening in LA is, horrific the way things are going, the rest of the country is just kind of watching it like from afar, like it doesn't really impact them, okay? They're watching these things happen like it's watching a TV movie or something. They're not connected to it. And you got to remember, we've subjected ourselves to a lot of movies that are violent and stuff like that, so we've desensitized ourselves over the years over things that we see. But we forget that what we're seeing on the news, what's happening in LA, this is not movies, this is not a TV show. These are real people under real situations, and their lives are being upended needlessly by an idiot in the White House who thinks this is all cute. Okay, who's out there chuckling about Gavin Newsom, saying, oh, we'll ought to arrest him, and, you know, saying these retarded things, okay, that really make no fucking sense. All right, and you got his sycophants behind him giggling and smirking and shit like that. Very reminiscent of Nazi Germany when Hitler would do shit, okay? This is the same shit, okay? The same. And like I said, with those people behind him, this goes on. Even if Trump passed away or something like that tonight, this crap won't stop, because the other people that are part of his cabal would continue this. You know, so that's why I say we can protest against Trump and protest what he's doing, but anybody who is associated with Trump, even somebody who supported him or voted for him, these are also people that have betrayed the country, have become traitors to the nation, because by supporting Trump, they support his actions, they support him shitting on the Constitution, they support him breaking the laws, they support him illegally deporting people out of this country without due process. You are not being an American when you support a fellow like that, okay? That's like me supporting a rapist by giving the rapist money, by giving him aid. If he's hiding out from the police, I would give him shelter. Okay, you see what I'm saying? It's the same fucking thing. And I would be in the wrong. Aiding and abetting a criminal. Trump is a criminal. Many times over. Of course, you know that. And he's doing criminal things. And he's got people supporting him, aiding and abetting a criminal. So, when people are in Los Angeles protesting this and trying to resist ICE, they're not breaking the law. They are. People are trying to force them to obey the laws of this country, and they are the ones oppressing everybody back, pushing them back. They are saying, no, we are going to break the law, and you can't stop us. That would be like allowing the mafia to take control of New York City because, hey, you're not allowed to stop us. The police would be helping the mafia. Now, don't you see how Trump creating this mess is really counterproductive to everything that this country stands for and how it's going to ruin us in the end? If you don't want to think about these things because they're too dark thoughts to have, I feel sorry for you, because, you know, if you can't think about it, if you cannot think into the future as to where this takes us, because your imagination is limited in some way, then you're going to live a life on your nerves, and you're never going to know what controlling of your life is, okay? You're never going to understand that. And you can't go through life with blinders on, essentially. You can't do that. When you see these injustices happening around you, it is up to us to open our eyes, get woke, okay, and understand that these things are really happening. This is not fantasy. This is not science fiction. This is not a fucking TV movie of the week. This is not Lifetime Movie Network. This is reality. Folks, this is reality. MAGA, take the fucking blinders off. This is reality. This is something you created. You traitors created this mess. Some of you people have learned that he ain't on your side, haven't you? The rest of you, you've yet to learn still, okay? But it's coming. Your moment of getting woke is coming very soon. But I'm telling you right now, you guys are responsible too, more so than the rest of us, because you encouraged it. You supported it. You fucking voted for it. Okay? So that makes you, in my eyes, it makes you a traitor to this country. Because in any other kind of time in in American history, MAGA would be considered a terrorist organization. Because from day one, they tried to muscle their way into everything, starting with January the 6th. Again, that was a terrorist act. And they didn't learn anything about what right and wrong is, okay? These people sat in prison waiting for Trump to pardon them, which he did. But now you guys are back out there again. You're going to do this again. Now this time you got the power of the government to do your terrorist work, okay? I don't know how far the military is going to go with this. I really don't. I don't want to know, okay? I'm hoping the Marines that Trump wants to send in will not do what Trump is asking them to do. It's really their duty not to obey illegal orders, okay? If they know goddamn well that Trump is asking them to do something illegal, it is their duty to disobey. So I'm hoping that they understand this, okay? Because when things happen, the axe of blame is going to fall on those who aided and abetted a criminal. Do you see what I'm getting at? There's going to be justice done because of this. In the aftermath, there will be justice done. And all those people that sat on their ass and did nothing about it, or those who kissed Trump's ass and did everything to help him, they're all going to be lined up and, judged. If you give a shit about America and you think God is watching over this country, then you already know this is not going to last forever, okay? God's not going to let this happen to this God-loving country. If you're a Christian, God won't allow that. You think God is a dictator? You think he wants an Adolf Hitler running this country? He certainly didn't want Adolf running Germany. Okay? But these things will not last. And at the end of the day, you people are all going to be dragged out in front of justice, and you're going to have to answer for what you did. So, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes, all of you people out there that are supporting this. I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. I'm very well comfortable in my position here when it comes to this country, where I stand, okay? And right now, what we have for the United States is not the United States that I took an oath to defend so many years ago, okay? And I think a lot of veterans have come to that same reasoning, that this is not America, okay? We owe it to all those who came before us, in the military, to save this country in whatever way we can, okay? We really do. We can't go to our graves knowing this country is still on fire, okay? We have to try to put the fire out, okay? All right, that's all I got to say. I'll talk to you guys later.